Have you ever worked hard to sound like one of your favorite singers and even went to voice lessons online or in person, but felt like the advice you were getting just didn't seem to be working? Did you also feel like maybe it was working for other people and you wondered why it wasn't working for you?
Would you like to know how to sing 10 times better
In 5 minutes.
So girls, you want to learn how to sing better instantly.
just 5 minutes?
You're likely to be much more satisfied.
To really sing better
Instantly. Sing better.
Sing better right now.
Singing better instantly.
Today I'm going to talk about a simple but very, very common mistake that a lot of coaches and a lot of students of singing make when they're trying to get a certain sound. People who coach singers often talk about some pretty mysterious sounding stuff.
Our wind, acoustic.
If you're new to singing, or if you're not a singer at all, and you hear singers talk about how they do what they do, you might think they're a little bit crazy.
Typical coming from that head and that mix to go to the chest.
I'm above the nasal cavity. I'm singing through my eyes and my eyebrows.
It's one of the most difficult passaggos that you could do. Now it's easier to come from a chest and go to a head.
They talk about things that seem to be magic. Head voice.
What is head voice?
Chest voice.
Men have 2/3 chest voice and 1/3 head voice.
Mixed voice.
Well, what does mix mean?
This is called your middle register, and it's essentially the space that lies between your lower and upper register.
So for mixed voice, the vocal folds do have to stretch to get to that pitch.
And it's a really weak sounding place in our voice for most of us.
But in the process, they also thicken up a little bit more.
It's something that we want to work on strengthening. So what we're working on is kind of erasing the middle register.
So we end up with this combination of thinness and thickness.
Chest dominant mix, head dominant mix.
No matter what you're singing, there's always an element of mixture in play. It's just a matter of how much ratio of mixture.
They talk about where they put their sound.
Chest voice is when the sound of our voice resonates in our mouth.
And let's say my mouth is really mouthy.
Head voice, on the other hand, is where we get the voice resonating or vibrating primarily up in the head.
And above that line.
And which way the air
Your
flows.
soft palate lifts like this. Look at all that space you have, that extra space. For the air to come through, up into that space and carry forward and out.
When the vocal cords stretch out, the larynx tilts and rocks. This sends the air up and into the head resonance. So when we feel more head resonance, we get more stretch to the cords.
So we're going to practice by aiming the air through the nose.
If your orientation is to sing in the resonance.
These things don't seem to make sense, and often it's because they don't.
And that's not really going to be all that helpful to us.
We need breath at the very center of the voice. It is the very nucleus of how the entire instrument works.
So the voice is an amazing instrument.
Your voice is a musical instrument, like any other. In fact, it's actually 2 in 1.
New school singing is based on the idea that your voice is not an instrument.
Whoa, what?
Because it's not an instrument, that means you're acting directly to make the sound. So in the end, the way we get it done has a lot to do with our imagination.
We've got to know how to ride waves. Yeah. We need to be the surfer riding the wave.
The idea of what it's like to do a sound, the way you feel, That's called attitude. There's two things you have to get out of the way before your sound can become second nature, before it can become an attitude, and before you can rely on doing it consistently. That's position and motion. If you told a normal person about chest voice or head voice or mixed voice, or where they place their sound, or which direction their air goes, they might think you're a little bit crazy. If you're new to singing, it can all be pretty overwhelming, and you might start out feeling like coaches and teachers know some kind of magic or have some kind of special perception or intelligence that you don't have, that they can hear things you can't hear. If you go into online discussion groups or read comments on YouTube, you might get the feeling like everybody understands this stuff and for some reason you don't.
Are you stupid?
Are you deaf? I said, are you deaf?
The truth is that a lot of times people just learn to repeat what's being said so that they can fit in.
But I tell you, Jerry, at that moment, I was a marine biologist.
The three main aspects that go into making a particular sound when you sing are position, motion, and attitude. Attitudes are things that you can't really describe. For instance, if I'm walking, how do I describe that? I could come up with a definition, but someone's going to break it with a funny walk, and they're still walking. We all understand walking because we share the experience of walking. Even someone with no legs has seen a lot of people walking, so they understand what walking is. But if I were an alien from outer space, how would you describe walking to me? What if I didn't have legs? What if my species was just a kind of blob that rolls around? How would you describe walking? You would try to talk about the positions and motions that we use for walking, but none of it would really add up to walking. In order to understand walking, you have to know walking in some way. You have to have a shared experience. If you want to perform well, when you step on stage, you can't be worried about mouth positions and little details about this and that. You have to just have the attitude. You got to be ready to go. But how do you get there? That's the issue. In the end, the sound that you get isn't really caused by the attitude. The sound that you get is caused by position and motion of your body. Most voice teachers and coaches tend to talk about the attitude that you're going to need in the end and expect you to find the position and motion. When your technique is a simple attitude, you can get on stage and just do it without thinking about it. And that leaves you free to communicate directly with your audience instead of thinking of yourself like an instrument. But when you're not ready for that moment, you're going to step on stage and find yourself flooded with all kinds of details that you didn't think about before the moment happened. So today I want to introduce you to something that you can look at, understand, and see right away.
Instantly.
Right now.
Instantly after this video.
In 5 minutes. That's the position and motion of your mouth. I'll be talking about certain shapes you can make with your mouth using specific labels. But don't worry, if you don't want to use this system, you don't have to. What matters in the end is what you do, not what you call things. They're really useful to me because I have a lot of details I need to keep organized on the job. I sing in 5 languages, I have to sing and act at the same time, there's a lot of distractions going on, and I just never know when I'm gonna get a surprise on stage. So I try to show up with everything ready to go. It's also a lot of music to learn and study and memorize. So for me, it's really important to have a way to keep everything organized. My job is singing opera, but I also like to do a lot more than that. You can watch my crossover covers here on this channel, and you can see that I put a lot of work into doing them. But you can also see that I use very different position and motion to sing that music. I want you to do a quick experiment. Make a video of yourself singing a song that gives you a lot of trouble. And now find some footage of an artist that you admire singing that same music live. Compare the position of your mouth and the motion of your mouth to theirs. What can you notice about the way they move their mouth and the way you move your mouth? Is it the same or really a lot different? Yeah, of course, there's a whole lot more that goes into how they make their sound than just the position of their mouth. This is one thing that can really hold you back, even if you have really great ideas about what you're going to do with the rest of your body. The reason for it is something called source filter nonlinearity. Now, you see a lot of teachers talk about your larynx and the vocal cords and these little tiny muscles inside of your throat that need to be strengthened or made more flexible or more coordinated in order to get the sound that you want. And that's true, but it's also true that the shape of your vocal tract has a huge effect on how your larynx actually functions. That means that no matter what you're doing in your throat, if you're not doing the right thing with your mouth, you're not going to get the result that you're after. So why not get these details out of the way? Now, a quick word about what some coaches say about imitating others.
The main thing with becoming an artist is to be original, is to be authentic, is to be who you are. Get so many singers who come to me who say, I want to sound like so-and-so. I did that when I was so much younger, and because of that, I also started to form some very bad habits. Everybody has a great voice. Everybody. The only reason you don't
is a lack of your full resonance. And that means because of constrictions in your throat, it's not that you're not hearing your true voice, but you're not hearing your whole voice. And when you hear your whole voice, you will hear it as your true sound. My voice, my true sound, my real tone.
So that you can really enjoy singing on a much greater level at what level you are at.
That's just semantics.
Now that sounds really great, finding your own natural sound, but are you really going to be satisfied with that?
If you simply don't sound as good as you would like to sound, rule number one I have is that it doesn't matter what it sounds like.
Another thing to notice is that every coach who's telling you not to imitate other singers and to use your natural sound is usually teaching you by asking you to imitate what they do.
Right.
In a way, they're kind of gaslighting us. They're telling us not to imitate others, and they're telling us that imitation is the way to get bad habits, but that the way we're going to get out of that is by imitating them. So let's put those ideas aside for a second. Let's imagine that imitating other singers is the best way to learn, and basically the only way anyone is teaching singing anyway.
If I were to sing, baby tonight, I'm blowing up your line, is that my voice? It is, but it's my voice weighted down by all kind of neck pressure. So instead of, I'm blowing up, if I let go, I'm blowing up your line.
And one great thing about new school singing is it allows you to use other systems for looking at different types of singing or looking at your main type of singing, and just lets you switch to get a different point of view. So if we look at this singing on the left,
baby tonight, I'm blowing up your line,
Eric is using modes called edge and overdrive. They have something called metal in the sound. And on the right, he's using something called neutral.
I'm blowing up your line,
Now, neutral is a non-metallic mode. It may be that when he sings in edge, Eric feels
weighted down by all kind of neck pressure.
That's resolved by getting good at edge and practicing singing in the edge mode. Another problem with this example is that although he's focused on the neck tension, he's missing the really obvious, which is that he's using completely different mouth positions. And those different mouth positions are going to call for different strategies in the body and in the neck. Maybe worse than that is
what
that
a lot of you are experiencing when you come to me is a lack of your full resonance.
But if we look at a spectrograph here, we can see that the sound on the left is more resonant, and the sound on the right is less resonant if we're looking at it objectively. Does that mean the sound on the left is better? That's just the quality of the edge mode. It's capable of making a bigger projected sound than neutral is.
It's like I always say, it's not about the size of the boat, but the motion of the ocean.
Yes.
Baby, tonight I'm blowing up your line. I'm blowing up your line.
You may have noticed I like to talk about things in threes. And I like to do that because it helps you avoid binary choice. The binary choice is when you think in black and white. It's this or that. It's healthy or unhealthy. It's right or it's wrong. It's natural or it's unnatural.
Either you're for us or you're against us. I'm afraid you've misjudged me.
That's not the most helpful way to think about your singing. So instead of thinking of imitating other singers as right or wrong, or healthy or unhealthy, why not just think of it as one of the things you can do? That doesn't mean you have to always do that. It doesn't mean you can't find your own sound. It does mean that you're going to learn some techniques. And you're going to learn some techniques because techniques are the only way you get the sound in the first place. There's no magic. There's position, motion, and attitude. On top of position, motion, and attitude, New School Singing also talks about knowledge, ability, and heart. And just like attitude is the most important in the end, heart is the most important in the end. If you can't concentrate when you get up on stage because you're losing your cool, then all your knowledge and all your ability is going to go out the window. But that doesn't mean you can just use heart to get the job done. You still have to show up knowing what you're going to do, and you still have to show up being able to do it. The best place to start building your ability to use your face in a way that helps you get the position and motion you need is in front of a mirror. There's 2 steps to moving your face in a way that allows you to get the sound you want. Maybe you don't use certain muscles in your face a lot, and you just don't have the ability to move them yet. So let's just start by making sure you're not fighting your own body when you practice. I'll show you a couple of ideas, but you might also consider something like Fumiko Takatsu's face yoga method. I'll put a link in the description. Now, once you have the ability to do what you need to do, you need the knowledge to know how to do it and when to do it. To help you with that, New School Singing has 2 simplified systems for describing the shape you make with your mouth. Now, they're simplified in the sense that they don't include everything you need to know about how to move your jaw and how to move your lips. In fact, they only work in 2 dimensions. That's important for one reason, and that's that when you have too much information, it's just like having no information at all, because you can't handle it all at the same time.
Do we got that? Randy's length is 4.4 inches, but his adjusted length is 6.3. So how does our example person, Randy, compare to others on the TMI scale? By referring again to the TMI chart, we see that a TMI of 6.3 is 0.8 inches more than the national average.
So these 2 systems don't tell you everything you need to know about your face and your jaw and your lips, but they do help guide you towards the right positions. They're called T-numbers because the name for the shape at the end of your mouth is the terminal opening. You may have noticed coaches and teachers talking a lot about what happens in your larynx. That's where your vocal cords are, and the vocal cords cause the vibrations that create the sound. They're not wrong about that, but what they often aren't aware of, because it's only been known for about 20 years.
Isn't that as old as the internet?
Yeah. The vibrations coming from your vocal cords are actually affected by sound that goes back from inside your mouth towards your larynx. Think of it as a chicken and an egg. The larynx is the egg, and your mouth is the chicken.
What's the chicken egg situation? What do you mean? What do you mean, chicken?
Well, you know, what comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Or maybe the larynx is the chicken, and your mouth is the egg.
Stupid. The chicken, obviously. Oh, well, where did the chicken come from? Well, it came from the...
Nobody knows, and it really doesn't matter. You need chickens and you need eggs if you want more chickens than eggs. That's a nonlinear system. Instead of going in a straight line from your vocal cords out to your audience, it's actually going in a loop. And some of that loop is leaking out, but actually most of it is going right back into your mouth and back into your throat. And that's where it changes the way your vocal cords come together and come apart again. So everything you're doing in here is really dependent on what you're doing here, and with your whole throat and with your whole mouth. Now your jaw and your lips aren't limited to moving in 2 dimensions. Your jaw can move up and down, it can move side to side, and it can move back and forth. Imagine a circle in the front of your face. Now imagine you make a shape inside that circle. Of course, there's an infinite number of actual shapes you can make inside that circle. But the T numbering system marks some significant points that can help you find your way. It's a little bit like there's an infinite number of spaces between point A and point B. But when we're making a map, we're only interested in some of those points. Let's start in the middle, position 0. You'll see this position a lot when you watch opera singers. You'll see it a little bit less when you watch contemporary singers. In opera, it's often called cover. Contemporary singers also might call it a cover, or they just might call it a big round O. There's something really neutral about this to me, maybe because I'm an opera singer and I use this position a lot. Also though, it just looks like a big 0 shape, so I called it 0. And that's where we begin, and that's kind of the middle of the T numbering system. Let's look at the next position. If we close the circle a little bit, we get position +1. I call this +1 because the lips come inwards, inside the circle. Some people might call this the small oo, or they might call it covered. And now we run into a problem with calling it covered, because some people call the big O shape covered. So covered might be 0 shape, it might be +1, or it might be a completely different shape, just with a darker sound.
In classical music, there's always that cover. But when you're doing modern, you have to take away that cover.
We don't know. That's because covering is an attitude. But right now, what we're worried about is position. Some people also call this the small oo, because we use it a lot to say the vowel oo when we speak. But again, vowels are attitudes, and we're really only concerned about position right now. Not to mention, I can make a lot of vowels in this position. Oo, o, a, e. They all sound a bit covered, if you will, but they're still different vowels. So instead of calling it small oo, I call it +1. That way I know I'm talking about a position and not an attitude. Now if I completely close the mouth, I get to position +3. We may just call this a hum. And that's fine. I just like to have +3 to keep my system nice and neat. Now you might ask, why did we skip +2? Well, that's because +2 is next. Between +3, and +1, ooh, we have +2. Ooh. Actually, I got the idea to start experimenting with this position from watching ventriloquists.
Are you ready? Yeah, I'm ready. Hit it.
Ventriloquists are able to make a lot more sound than you'd think for someone with their mouth closed. And they're also really clear. Now, I found out later from practicing with this that not only can you make quite a lot of sound in this closed mouth position, fleurs que tu m'avais jetées. There are reasons why this mouth position lets you make really clear vowels, but I'll get to that in a later video. What's important for this video is understanding how to find it. Close your mouth and then make a small gap in between your upper and lower lip. You can spread your lips or you can keep them more relaxed. It doesn't really matter. That's +2. As well as being a position you might see in both contemporary singing and classical singing, it's a good way to train your tongue. Now your tongue gets stronger and more coordinated from using this because it forces you to do all of your articulation with it. It may be that in the final product you don't want your tongue to move so much, but stabilizing your tongue takes muscle. And the best way to develop strength and coordination is to move things around. Now let's head back to position 0 so that we can go the other way. Oh, ah, ah, ah. That's position -1. And we call this -1 because we move away from the center of the circle and we start to take away the cover from the teeth. It might be that when you relax and open your jaw, you actually go to position -1 instead of position 0. That's because different people have different upper lips. Your upper lip might be a lot shorter, and if your upper lip is a lot shorter, then when you relax, you're going to show some of your upper teeth.
Why are you telling me this? What makes you think I have any interest in that at all?
Because if you and I are trying to communicate about how to make a certain sound, the source filter nonlinearity theory tells us that we need a particular shape in order to reflect something back to the chords that helps them vibrate in a certain way. The sound doesn't care if your lip is relaxed or if your lip is tense. All it cares about is the shape in your terminal opening. In the simplified version of the T numbering system, it doesn't matter if you pull up your upper lip or if you pull down your lower lip. Oh, ah, oh, ah. They're the same thing. When I get to the more advanced system, then we'll see that it makes a difference. Next up is -2. Now, -2 can be tricky for some people if their cheeks haven't yet developed the coordination and strength to actually pull the lip far enough away from the teeth. So if you need to, work in the mirror and pull hard until you see the shape. Don't worry about whether it feels tense or not. It's going to get easier as your face gets stronger. In this extra simple version of the T numbering system, -3 is the final position. This one's often called the smile. To get this position, you have to start closing your jaw and you make your mouth as wide as possible. Oh, oh, e, 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 e. You'll see this one a lot in contemporary singing and in musical theater singing. Deceive me. You'll also see it once in a while in classical singing, and it's fine if you use this. A lot of teachers say you should never ever use this position, but I have to disagree. On some people, it sounds really good. It depends on the strategy that you're using to get your sound. Now the reason, again, I don't call this a smile or I don't call this a vowel is because those are attitudes and we're talking about position. And anyway, the only people who smile like this are fucking psychos.
Let me come in.
So that's the super simple system. If you want to stick with this super simple system, that's fine. If you're looking for a position that doesn't fit in this system, just go for the closest one. And if moving your top lip doesn't help, try moving your bottom lip in a similar way. That's it for part 1 of this tutorial. I hope you found it useful. In part 2, I'll introduce you to the more advanced T numbering system, and I'll talk a lot more about when you would use this. So far, we've been really only talking about position, but what about motion? When you string two positions together, you get motion. So thanks for watching and stay tuned for part 2. If you find this information useful, consider supporting this channel. You can find a link in the video description. This is Mr. Opera signing off for now. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell if you want to be notified about my latest videos as soon as they're published.
I'm above the nasal cavity. I'm singing through my eyes and my eyebrows. Oh my goodness, what's happening? And the voice is sitting in the mouth.
Everybody has a great voice. However, you don't because
You don't have the range that you would like to have.
So it's my intent with this video to empower you
to work with me personally.
Make us feel good. It does feel good, especially when we don't care what it sounds like, right?